You're alone in an empty room, or you think you are, and suddenly the hair on the back of your neck stands up. You turn around slowly, half expecting to see someone standing there. Nobody's there. Nothing has actually happened. But the feeling doesn't go away immediately, and some part of you stays alert for another few seconds just in case. You call it a coincidence or an overactive imagination. But the real answer is far stranger, because the machinery producing that exact feeling has been running inside primate brains for tens of millions of years. You are not imagining a threat out of nothing. You're running one of the oldest detection systems your brain owns, and it doesn't need an actual person watching you to fire. For most of the 20th century, the sense of being watched got treated as a curiosity at best, folklore at worst. The kind of feeling easily dismissed as pure imagination with no real biological basis. Then researchers studying primate vision started noticing something specific enough that it couldn't be waved away. In the 1980s, neuroscientist David Parrott was studying neurons in the temporal cortex of macaque monkeys, mapping exactly which brain cells activated in response to visual information about faces. What he found was remarkably specific. Certain neurons didn't just respond to a face in general, they responded specifically to the direction another individual's eyes were pointed. Some neurons fired only when another monkey's gaze was directed straight at the observing monkey. Others fired only when the gaze was averted, looking away. The monkey's brain wasn't just processing, "There is a face nearby." It was running a dedicated specialized calculation, asking one very specific question: is this creature looking directly at me right now? Why would evolution bother building neurons that specific? Because in a world full of predators, prey, and rival members of your own species, knowing whether something is looking directly at you carries enormous survival information packed into a single visual cue. A predator's direct gaze often precedes an attack. A rival's direct stare often precedes a challenge. An averted gaze usually signals disinterest or submission. Being able to instantly, automatically detect the difference between being watched and not being watched, without needing to consciously think it through, could mean the difference between reacting in time and reacting too late. Psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen built directly on this kind of research when he proposed something he called the eye direction detector, a specialized cognitive mechanism he argued exists specifically to track where other individuals are looking. According to Baron-Cohen's model, this system operates largely below conscious awareness, constantly scanning the environment for eyes, and specifically for the direction those eyes are pointed, feeding that information directly into how you interpret a social situation before you've had time to think about it logically at all. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This system appears to be so sensitive, so eager to detect potential gaze, that it can misfire constantly, and does in ways you've probably never noticed as misfires at all. Psychologist Nicholas Humphrey, working on what became known as the social intelligence hypothesis, argued that primates, including humans, evolved unusually sophisticated social cognition specifically because living in complex social groups demanded constant tracking of who was watching whom, who held social rank over whom, and who might be a threat at any given moment. In an environment like that, a detection system prone to occasional false alarms is actually a feature, not a bug. A system that sometimes triggers on nothing, mistaking a shadow, a pattern, or an ambiguous shape for watching eyes, costs you almost nothing. A system that fails to notice a real predator's gaze, even once, could cost you everything. Evolution, given that trade-off, built a system that errs dramatically on the side of paranoia. Think about what that actually means for the empty room you were just standing in. Your brain's eye direction detector doesn't require an actual person to be present. It only requires enough ambiguous visual information, a dark window, a gap in a doorway, a pattern on a wall that vaguely resembles two eyes, to trigger the same alert your ancestors' brains would have triggered facing down a genuine predator hidden in the underbrush. The feeling is real. The neurological alarm is completely genuine. It's simply firing in response to statistical noise instead of an actual observer, because a slightly oversensitive system was, for millions of years, safer than an accurate one. This is where the modern world quietly complicates everything even further. You now spend enormous amounts of time in environments genuinely saturated with something ancient brains never had to process at scale. Actual constant observation, security cameras, smartphone front-facing lenses, social media platforms explicitly built around the awareness that other people are, or might be, looking at everything you post. Your ancient gaze detection system, built for small groups where being watched meant one specific individual's eyes were on you in that exact moment, is now operating inside an environment where being watched can mean hundreds, thousands, or potentially millions of unseen eyes, all at once, none of them producing the single clear visual cue your brain originally evolved to detect. Some researchers studying online behavior have pointed out that this mismatch may partly explain why social media can feel so uniquely anxiety-inducing compared to other forms of communication. Your detection system is built to answer a simple binary question: is someone looking at me right now? Yes or no, using direct visual information about actual eyes. Social media offers no visual cue at all, no eyes to read, and yet delivers the unmistakable knowledge that observation, potentially from an enormous and completely invisible audience, is happening anyway. The ancient system has no clean way to process that. It just stays generally, persistently activated, because there's no averted gaze to signal the all clear. So the next time you feel that prickling sensation of being watched in an empty room, or that specific hard-to-name discomfort scrolling through a social platform, remember that you're not malfunctioning. You're running a detection system built across tens of millions of years of primate evolution, a system so committed to keeping you safe that it would rather trigger 100 false alarms than miss one real predator's stare. The room was empty, but the part of your brain that checked wasn't built for empty rooms. It was built for a world where the difference between glancing over your shoulder and not doing it could decide whether you live to see tomorrow, and it has never once stopped checking since. The more we learn about the past, the better we understand ourselves. If this video sparked your curiosity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Phoenix Primeval for more fascinating stories from history, science, and human evolution. Thanks for watching.